How's everybody doing? I can hear you a little bit, but everybody all right? All right. What you doing, Keith? Thank you, sir. Y'all show some love for my man Keith Scott, who always puts this thing on. And please show some love for Carl Booker. Carl, wave. I know you don't like to wave over there. Wave for Carl over there.
Yeah.
Like Brother Scott said, I'm Mateen Diop, and Dr. Kelley and I are going to be sitting up here talking about all things educational, basically. Dr. Kelley and I have an extensive history in education here in San Antonio, and Dr. Kelley around the world. But we're going to be talking about a few things, and I'm going to introduce myself a little bit. Again, Mateen Diop from San Antonio, grew up right here on this side of town. Went to school on the east side, graduated from Highlands, went to Jeff Davis, a lot of stuff. Went to the military, came back from the military, started teaching. I was a classroom teacher at Harris Middle School. I was an assistant principal at W.W. White Elementary. Was a principal at Herman Hirsch Elementary, principal at Sam Houston High School, and done all other things. So we're going to be talking about the things that I kind of went through. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kelley, give himself a brief introduction. Brief introduction, Dr. Kelley.
Right. Born and raised right here in San Antonio, graduate of Roosevelt High School, 1991. Upon graduating, I attended the University of Texas at Austin. Got my bachelor's degree there, went on from there, worked in the music industry for many years, fell into the education industry, actually teaching about the music business. Fell in love with education, decided I wanted to be an administrator, moved up, became one of the youngest principals in the nation at that time, then moved up through the central office and eventually becoming CEO of a national education company, and did that for 15 years. I retired, said I wanted to retire early, didn't want to have a job where I work till I'm 98 and die at 99 type thing. So just kind of enjoying life and realized that my passion was mentoring black boys. So I started a foundation, the National Mentoring Foundation. So that's what I do full time now, just mentor black boys in schools all over the nation. So, hey, that's my story, a little bit of the story right there, all right?
And we're going to be talking about, in particular when it comes to black males, I want to reintroduce my man, Brother Nasir. Brother Nasir was one of my students, and when he reached out to me and said he wrote a book and all that stuff, I said, man, you got to come over here, come out here to this so people can see you and see who you are and talk to you. And what you may not understand, and when it comes to high school students, and I'm going to throw this question at you, as a high school principal, when I say I saw black males, young black males, falling off the cliff by the hundreds every single day, I'm not exaggerating. As leaders in education, Dr. Kelley, what do you think, what kind of resolve do you believe that you have to have? You were principal over at King Middle School. What kind of resolve do you have to have as a black male leader when it comes to reaching black students in public schools?
Great question. The main thing is you have to identify. You have to rewind back to when you were sitting in that classroom and remember all of the difficulties, all of the barriers. Because sometimes when we get to this point, after we have all these degrees behind our name and have made a little bit of money, you start to think, okay, this is different and times are different. Everything is the same. That same battle you had to fight, young men are fighting that battle times 3 today. So it gets worse, if anything, and it should be getting better. So you have to have a resolve and a type of dedication that's unlike any other thing. I hate to say it, I hate to brag about it, but we do the best job there is in education. A lot of people may think it may be another profession or another profession. This is the most important job. This is the best job overall. This is the most rewarding job. And doing that job correctly involves identifying with those that look like you, which is the black males in our case, and helping them not get to where you are, but being able to get a step above. And we have a problem with that in our race. We have among ourselves people sometimes it's our own people holding us back, which should never be a problem. Right. So you've got to be focused on the end goal, and it all involves back to that M word of mentoring. You have to mentor 24/7 to give an example, to show an example, to live an example that young men will follow. That way you've created the next generation of leaders.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Kelley. When I was at Sam Houston, when I first got there, I had a charge. The superintendent said, we're going to start a new high school. It's called PTech, Pathways in Technology Early College High School. We want you to stand this school up. And I said, okay, I have a technology background, and my doctorate is in technology. I can go if I can do all that. So I get to the school with this mindset of I'm going to stand up this new school over here. But as I get there and school starts, I realize that there are way more problems than this high school we're getting ready to start. So you ever seen the movie Lean on Me? How many of you seen the movie Lean on Me? Right? Lean on Me, the principal's name. What was the principal's name in Lean on Me? Joe Clark. I had no idea that I was going to turn into Joe Clark. I had no idea. It just kind of happened that way. So as a principal, school starts. I'm walking down the hall. It's 10 o'clock in the morning, and I see hundreds of kids in the hallway. And I'm looking at them going, hey, man, it's 10 o'clock. We knee deep in reading and writing. Why aren't you in class? And they would mumble something or mumble this and just kind of keep moving. Days go by. I see them again. I say, hey, why are you not in class? So one day, I just had to have a conversation with this one kid. I said, hey, man, come here. What's your name? Tell me what his name is. I said, what grade are you in? And he said, he couldn't tell me what grade he was in. I said, well, how old are you? He said, 18. I said, oh, well, you a senior. He said, oh, no, hold on. I am not I didn't say I was a senior. And I said to myself, again, I'm brand new. I didn't know. I said, how can you be 18 years old in high school and not be a senior? I had no idea. When you get to high school, and Dr. Kelley can attest to this, when your children get to high school, it's not about their age. It's not about how long you've been there. It's about how many credits you have. So to graduate from high school in the state of Texas, you need over 24 credits. So I asked that student again, oh, well, how many credits do you have? He said, 2. I said, 2? So if you have 2 credits in high school, what grade are you in? You're in 9th grade. I don't care if you're 50 years old. You're in the 9th grade. And I said, oh, okay. So now I changed the question that I asked him, Dr. Kelley. So I go to the hall the days after, hey, man, what's your name? How many credits do you have? 3, 4. How old are you? 18, 19. I said, wait a minute. This is not working out right. So I get home and I call the data department and I asked the district, I said, hey, can you give me a report of how many kids I have that are like too old? And they said, oh, you want an overage on the credit report. I said, oh, there's such a thing? And he said, yeah. I said, I need that report. He said, okay. So they sent him a report. I'm sitting outside waiting about 10 minutes before the report came in. The report came in. At that time, we had 1,375 students. I got the report. You know how many students we had that were too old to be in high school? 435. 435 students. That's what I was dealing with. So and I saw a long story to ask you when I said I had to go Joe Clark. Is that something in your travels and the leaders that you've talked to, black male leaders, is that the same song that they're singing?
Absolutely. It's the same song if you're there to do your job. See, the problem, we have people who are just making a stop. As a black male educator, you don't just make a stop through a certain position. Everywhere you go, you have to be there to revolutionize the school, to be dynamic, to make change. We don't have just temporary stops where this is something I get to gain experience. So correct, you're going in as a change agent. We have to be a change agent. We have to look at everything. We have to analyze it from the top down and say, what is really happening with our kids? Because unfortunately, when dynamic black leaders enter a school and we leave, we don't get replaced by people like us. All of the work that we do, you shoot it up all the way to the top, to the top, to the top. As soon as you leave and you're gone, it drops back down. The whole process starts over again. So the whole game is, how many lives can I change? How many lives can I affect in this short time that I'm here? Because you're only there for a short time because 2 things are going to happen. One, you're going to advance naturally because there's not a lot of people like you that care, that have the ability, because this is a talent job. I tell people all the time, they wonder why, well, we need more people in education. We need more. We do need more, but it's a talent-based job. It's just like playing football or basketball. If you start to just grab anybody, they're not going to succeed in such a high-pressure environment. People that do this for real, that really do this, have a talent, have a passion. So, yeah, you become Joe Clark because you care. That's what it is. When you don't care, you can just sit back. I do consulting now. I go to schools, and the hallway every day is like that. And I'm like, Let me give him a few suggestions. Change this, do this, do this. They don't do it. You go there the next week. It's still like that. Okay, that's somebody they don't care. They're just in a position. So when you care, you have to be the bad guy. You have to wear the black hat. Like LeBron James says, somebody got to wear the black hat in the cowboy movie. You got to be that one to be the one to make change. And that makes me ask him a question. Look, Dr. Diop thinks this is an interview of me. This is a discussion. So I've got him. I'm going to put him on the spot a little bit with some things. One thing I wanted to ask him is, what was the feeling when you were appointed as principal of Sam Houston High School? Because, like it or not, Sam Houston is the flagship school of the black community and will always be the flagship school of I'm born and raised here. He's born and raised. For us, Sam Houston is a special thing. When I was appointed principal at Martin Luther King, that was a special thing. When they say Riley, when they say MLK, what was that like, and what was that like to carry the torch? And, when you were like, this is it. You grew up looking at Sam Houston, and then now I'm principal. Explain that feeling of the tradition.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Kelley. When I got the call, first of all, I didn't apply. I didn't even know it was a vacancy. I was the Deputy Chief Technology Officer for the school district. My sights were set on the superintendent level. That's where I was trying to go. So I was on my way to a conference, and I get a call from the Deputy Superintendent. And I said to myself, this is it. I'm about to, superintendent, that's me. And then he said, can you come by my office today? And I said, well, I'm out of town. I'll be back Monday. He said, okay, come by the office Monday. So I went by the office Monday, he sat me down, and he said, I want you to be the principal at Sam Houston. And at first, I really wasn't overjoyed because I didn't want to be a principal again. I'd already done that. But it's Sam Houston, like you said. You're going back home now. So I thought about it and prayed about it, and I said, okay. So I went back. And I must admit, when I went back in there, like I just told you about the 435 students, I saw such an attitude of just giving up that it hurt me to my core. Man, I would go home at night and I sit on my patio and I just sit there with tears in my eye, bruh, because I couldn't believe the lack of what's not going on in school. It's not how I remembered it. But once I actually got the tears out and picked myself up and dusted myself off, had a lot of conversations with you, I said, this is what I'm going to do. And when I bring up the Joe Clark thing, I'm really not joking. You remember the scene when Joe Clark said, you smoke crack, don't you, boy? Remember that scene? Don't you smoke crack, boy. Don't mess around with it, just jump. Do you remember that scene? Wave if you remember that scene. Joe Clark was talking to the little boy on this roof because the little boy was doing drugs. Joe Clark said, if you want to kill yourself, don't mess around with it. Do it expeditiously and jump. I don't want to do it, Mr. Clark. I don't want to kill myself. He said, well, you're doing everything to kill yourself. That's what I saw. So when I walked down the hall and I said, hey, man, and we going back and forth, I realized that I'm the adult here. I'm the principal here. So that's when I say Joe Clark had to come out. Either you're going to do it this way or you're going to get out of this school. So I ain't going to lie, I kicked a whole bunch of kids out. But then I realized I can't kick them all out. Something has to be done because this city, and I'm not even going to say the federal government, this city of San Antonio, Texas, had already given up on them. So I said, no, we got to do something. And so I created a program and did all these kinds of things that brought those kids back in. And it's funny, once we did that, once they realized that there's some structure here, because our kids need structure. Once they realize that there's structure here, there's order, they begin to fall in line. I walk down the hall and they see me now, they stand up. Hey, Dr. Diop. Hey, man, well, you all right? I'm going to class right now. All right, man, that's it. That's what it became. But it took, like you said, somebody to come in and you can forget about trying to look for a promotion somewhere. Being a high school principal at a school like Sam Houston has nothing to do with you trying to get a promotion because you're literally fighting for lives each and every day. You have no time to think about, I'm going to go to the next level. No, because if you don't, it'll kill you. So I'm sorry, I took a long time to answer that question, but yeah, that's it. And if y'all have any questions for Dr. Kelley or myself, raise your hand, ask questions, comments, and all that kind of stuff, because this is a back and forth. Go ahead, Dr. Kelley.
Yeah. Let's see, it's on you now. What you got? I had the last one.
This is what I wanted to ask you now.
All right.
I don't know if you're aware. I know you do a lot of traveling. So in SAISD, for example, they've closed 3 or 4 schools on the east side. Closed Dory Miller, They closed Frederick Douglass. They closed a couple of more. Can't think of the name of them, but they closed the schools. These are neighborhood elementary schools. They had these meetings to discuss what to do with the buildings. So there's two questions. Now that these schools are closing, do you see an opportunity for the buildings in the community for anybody? But do you see an opportunity for that? And the second thing is, what's going to happen to those kids if they have no neighborhood school to go to? Two questions.
Man, that is a problem that has so many levels to it. Let's just start with the whole concept of gentrification, the things that people don't want to talk about. If you look at historically, black people, we had the prime land in cities. If you notice, near downtown, you see your Masonic lodges, you see all of the historic buildings, all of those things that go way back to the 1800s. We had the best land. You know, our schools are right by downtown. Our churches are right by downtown, all of that, right? Because the concept was, if you had money, you wanted to live far out. You want to be in the suburbs. So give the black folks this downtown area. Oh, y'all got the east side, you got this. Give that to them, they got that. We want to be way out and have land and everything, right? Well, what does the new trend become? Well, now we get tired of driving. We want to be closer to work downtown in the corporate areas. What if we live downtown? What if now the upper class live on the east side, which is 5 minutes from downtown? If you're a corporate lawyer, you work downtown, now you have a hour commute from the Dominion. Well, now you could have a 5-minute commute from just right there, you know, right by Bethel AME or something like that. So we look at that and we wonder, is this a strategic move? You got to always look at what's the hidden hand behind things that's moving. Is there some powers that be where 20 years from now, everything looks totally different, and those are our highest performing schools that don't look like us right there. So first one thing we have to do is protect our tradition. You know, when I hear a school like Dory Miller being closed, I mean, that's unheard of. You know, you know that's historic. You know, I believe Gates is a part of that. I mean, when you say Gates, that's saying that's the Sam Houston of elementary schools. So all of that history, all of that is just gone, just like that. So I really don't care what they do with the buildings, but we gotta preserve the tradition. That means going to school board meetings and expressing our the way we feel about that tradition is being gone just like that. Because you could turn around and 10 years from now, they fix all those buildings up and it looks modern, and now that's the best of the best is to be an SAISD. And now Northeast School District, way out by 1604, everything could flip-flop, and now that's the hood out there. And you listen to that and you think, wow, that could never happen. Do some research on Chicago. Tell y'all a Chicago story. So I go to speak in Chicago, and I'm speaking in an inner city school. So I said, you know, with my room, my hotel room, I want to stay somewhere real nice because I got to go deep into the hood. So when I book the room, I want to stay somewhere nice so I can just relax, you know, when I'm out of that area, right? So I booked my room in the suburbs of Chicago because I was like, I know that inner city part, you know, I'm gonna have to work there, but I'm gonna go back to the room and just chill in the nice suburbs. I get to the hotel and it has a sign and it says, no drug dealing, no prostitution here, no. I was like, what is that? And I just look around how the suburb, they flip-flop things in Chicago because the projects in Chicago are right on the riverfront in the most beautiful area. You wipe all those people out, we're putting in $1 million condos, now the suburbs is the hood. So it can happen. You've got to get involved with your city council. You've got to be on your school board. If you want to protect black tradition, you got to get involved and be a part of the system.
So you touched on a lot of things. So we're talking about now, let's move the conversation to charter schools. So those schools are now infiltrating a lot of our neighborhoods now, whether we like it or not, whether you think, and just on a personal note, your charter school is no better than your normal neighborhood school, just FYI. They teach the same curriculum, they teach the same TEKs because their building might be a different color, their floors might be a little bit shinier. Don't think that your child is gonna go in there and you're gonna get a better education at charter school A than you would at a neighborhood school like Gates or something like that. Doesn't work that way. Private school is totally different, but charter schools, they're one and the same. So as these charter schools begin to infiltrate and come into our neighborhoods, what strategies, what can parents do if they really want to have a say in the type of schools that come into their neighborhoods?
First thing you got to do, you got to believe in your public school. The first time something happens, you can't say, oh, I'm pulling them. We're going to that new big pretty school down the street. Oh, they got $1 million building. They got it all fixed up. Oh, you can't talk to my kid like that. I'm withdrawing them today. We're going down there. You go over there and realize they don't have the resources and the infrastructure that your school district has. So now 30 days later, you got to go back to the public school with your head hanging down, and you got to go back in there like, oh, we made a mistake. We went to the wrong school. I'll give y'all an example. Anybody, I don't know if you've been by Montgomery Elementary out there. I went to Montgomery. That's where I went, and I have a mentoring program there. And if you notice, I don't know if y'all have seen this, right there, 1 minute from Montgomery stands a big charter school that's just this, 6-story building with colors on it, this and that. So naturally, if you get into Montgomery's an older school, looks the same as it looked when I was there in 1983 or whatever, right? And if you go to that school and they make you mad, the first thing you do is say, oh, we're going right over here to them. But Montgomery been there 50 years. This school is 10 years old. So you first have to believe that going to a charter school is not a knee-jerk reaction to where you're going to go over there and things are going to be better, because you're going to be right back as far as that. I always tell people, what I tell my friends is like, you want to have a network where you know a doctor, so you can ask a doctor, hey, what do I do in this? You know a lawyer. Well, I'm the educator that my friends know, and they always ask me, where would you send your kid to school? Where do you go to school? Where does he go? Where does your kid go? And I always say a public school, right? We have an opportunity to send our kids to private schools, and I seriously considered it. I'm going to tell you what stopped me. What stopped me from sending my kid to private school, and the only reason we send them to private school is the prestige of it. That's it. That's it. I mean, we could just go on and all that, but it does have a certain level of prestige. What stopped me is they made me the face of the Go Public movement. They contact me and they say, we need you to do this photo shoot and talk about you as a success story from public school. Now, how would that look if I take my own 15-year-old and he goes to St. Mary's Hall, but I'm the face of Go Public? I'm like, they run me out of San Antonio. Best move ever doing that. So we got to continue to support it, as Dr. Diop said, inner school cities. I mean, that inner city schools work. I mean, that works. We just got to be there to support it. That's the key. I got one for you. Got a question for you. You've always been for the gender-based movement, and it's the importance of it. I think at a point, people started to get it, and then it like died down. And I don't think you ever got the credit for being the one to push that to the front in regard to the Young Men's Leadership Academy and things like that. How does that make you feel when, as an educator, you're at the forefront of something and people tell you, oh, no, that won't work, and then they go behind closed doors and rework it a little bit and say, oh, no, it works this year, like that. How does that make you feel, and how do you come back from that? Because stuff like that makes us say, let's get into something else.
Exactly.
How do you keep going, knowing that thing, and kind of tell that story, how that works?
When if you don't know, that, have you ever heard of the Young Men's Leadership Academy and the Young Women's Leadership Academies? Both of them, I started both of those schools. The Young Women's Leadership Academy was started as a result of my dissertation. That was my research. I've always been a single gender kind of dude. Even back when I was a middle school teacher, I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. When the students would walk into the classroom, I said, boys, you sit over here. Girls, you sit over here. And back then, I was Mr. Potter. Mr. Potter, why we got to sit over here and do that? And I would explain it. I said, children, this classroom is the earth. I said, that line that divides the earth into the northern and southern hemispheres, that's called the equator. Boys, you sit on the north side of the equator. Girls, you sit on the south. And never should you ever have to cross. And I've always been that way. When I went to do lunch duty, boys sit over here, girls sit over there. Because it's been what I've learned in my research is that if you catch a young man, you got to catch boys by the 4th grade, 9 years old. That's when you catch them. Kindergarten and up, it doesn't matter. They can take baths together and all that kind of stuff. They don't know. When a boy turns 9, that's the time to catch him. That was based on my research. They can go either way, left or right. That's when you have to really catch them. So when I started the Young Men's Leadership Academy, I started it 4th grade. When I started the Young Women's Leadership Academy, I started 6th grade. Because girls, they mature a little bit faster than boys. So when we were sitting in the room one day and they were lamenting about all the test scores and all that kind of stuff, I told the superintendent, I said, hey, man, let me start a boys' school, all boys' school. He said, Mateen, go ahead and do it. And that's what I did. I started it alone. Nobody what somebody tells you, yeah, we would work together to start. I'm going to go ahead and push my chest out. I started the Young Men's Leadership Academy alone. Me and my secretary. That was it. Nobody else. All the paperwork, all the recruiting, all the marketing, the logo that's being used right now, I created it. Everything they do, I created it. So I just want to throw that out there. So when you say, what really gets me is when I hear people talking in the public and they talk about the Young Men's Leadership Academy and everything, and they never mention my name. Sometimes I just want to stand up and just say, tell us about Monica Lewinsky. That's what I want to say. But I'm getting past that. God ain't through with me yet. I'm still working on some things. But, yeah, that's how I'm getting. But I want to go. But hold on. But you talked about the charter schools for a second.
Right, okay.
I wanted to touch on the charter schools. Here's one of the things they did when I was a principal. In Texas, they have what's called a snapshot date. The snapshot date, I think, is October 30th. That means on October 30th, the state of Texas takes a snapshot, a virtual snapshot of everybody in your building. So October 30th at 11 o'clock, Texas takes a look. And everybody who's there will count towards your star results no matter what, whether they leave or whatever, that's who's going to count. What a lot of charter schools would do is they would just, once they took the snapshot, if they knew that you weren't going to pass, stay over there until October 30th at 11:01. When they take the snapshot, then they would take you out. So they make sure you wouldn't count for them. That's the game they play. So what Dr. Kelley was saying about the bright buildings and all that kind of stuff, do you know the number one predictor of child success or student success in school? You know what the number one predictor is? You, parents, parental involvement. That's number one. If you as a parents, if you are involved in your child's educational career, the chances of them succeeding rise exponentially to almost 100%. I've never seen a child with two active parents fail at anything when it comes to school. Never. You can even have a single parent, whatever, but you have to have parent involvement. I'll tell you this one last story. Again, walking down the hall. Hey, what's your name? This was a girl. Oh, my name is whatever. Okay, so same questions. How old are you? This and that and this and that. How old are you? The girl calls her mother. The mother calls the school to speak to me. And normally, I don't return parents' phone calls. You have to come up here and talk to me. That's how I was. But for whatever reason, that particular day, I decided to return that call. So I returned the call. Yes, ma'am, this is Dr. Diop. You call up here, Principal of Sam Houston, you call up here. The mother went off. Who the blah, 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 you blah, 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 blah. Who you think you asked my child what grade she was in? I said, yes, ma'am. Well, how the hell, went off. What business of yours, this is what she said, what business is it of yours, fool, what grade my child is in? That's what the parent told me. I said, ma'am, I'm your child's principal. I ain't got nothing to do with you. And she hung the phone up. Now, to this very day, and you probably read about this particular child in the paper at some point. You know what the child is right now? Child is only 19. You know what she is right now? In prison. You know what she's in prison for? Murder. Right now, at this moment. I read about this stuff happened during COVID. I was like, that's the one that yada, yada, yada. But I'm telling you, I can't stress this enough. If you have children, make sure the parents are involved. That's my point.
Definitely. I'm going to piggyback on that right there. And you reminded me of a story. One thing I did when I was a middle school assistant principal, at the school I was at, I'm not going to say the name, but this particular school was just out of control at this point, and it was a group of boys and a few girls who were just terrorizing the school. So one day I sit down and I make a list of the names, right? I make a list of the names. They're 8th graders, and I said, I'm going to go back and revisit this in like 10 years. I'm going to keep this list for 10, 15 years, and I want to see where they are. I'd forgotten I'd done that, and I was cleaning out papers one day. That's one of the things. I know y'all do. Y'all got a lot of papers. You got a lot. I mean, anybody that educated, we got like boxes full of them. We keep everything, right? So I'm going through. I'm looking at my papers and everything. I'm sorting out, throwing stuff away, and I find this list, and there were about 8 or 9 students on that list. So I sit down in my office, and I Google every one of those names. And Dr. Diop, do you know, out of those 8 or 9, well, I would say 6 boys and 2 girls, every one of those that was causing trouble and just wreaking havoc in middle school were either dead or in prison. I mean, each name, it wasn't even a hard Google search. Like, as soon as you typed in the name, it went straight to an Express News story that said so-and-so tried to rob this and got killed in the process, or so-and-so was killed in a gang shootout, blah, blah, blah. It matched up. So that ties directly back to the parents, because then I reached back and I said, who were the parents of these particular kids? And for all of them, there was a grandma or grandpa that was trying their best. Right. Like they were just trying really hard to maintain them, but there was no mom or dad in the picture at all. But it relates directly back to that. So I'm gonna flip that to a question for you, because he has a daughter. There's one thing, look, I feel like I've done everything in my career. The one thing I did not do is I don't have a daughter. And so I have a son, right? I have one kid, just my son. And I see the father-daughter relationship, and individuals like us, because this is what we do for a living, look, I'm not gonna brag about, but we're really good fathers because we're trained in it. Right. Like, so I always wonder what my impact would be on a girl, because like a son, I'm gonna be honest, man, a son, it's no problem, because they just look at you, as he said, when you got both parents there, they just watch you. They watch you making money, being successful, driving nice cars, living good, and they're like, yep, I know what to do, and they follow that. But the girl relationship, I want you to describe the formula to creating a strong black woman, and then I guess we'll flip it back to me, and I'll do the black male. So
I love it.
How, as a father, what are the bullet points that you got to do to make sure that she's successful?
Man, it's wild, because my daughter, she's 17. She's going into her senior year of high school. She's going to the Air Force Academy, straight A's. She went to West Point and Air Force Academy this summer. And for whatever reason, it might be because of her mother, I don't know, but for whatever reason, she has this drive that is unexplainable. But she told me the other day, man, you can't have me. She told me, she said, Dad, I said, Yazzie, are you going to, something about school and not doing what she's supposed to do? She said, Dad, I've seen you your whole career deal with everybody else's child. So I never wanted to be that child that I saw you dealing with. Sorry. So I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I make you and Nana, my mother, Nana, proud of me. That's what she told me. And she's 17 years old. So I sit back and I look at her and I go, I can't even explain it, man. But she has a drive that she's always trying to please Daddy. And I'm just look at her and go, you do your thing, Mama, and I'm just there to support. And, you know, not without going too much into it, man, that's me as fathers. We just really have to be that strong support. I know I'm crying like a baby, but we have to be that rock for our daughters.
That's right. And if you all notice, as we tell these stories, there's a component to it that is really the key to success, and it's the time. Because I look at my dad, you know, I grew up with Mom and Dad there. And my dad was working. He wasn't there, you know, with me. You know, we're doing stuff with my son every day. We're going here, we're doing that. Part of my drive to be successful, why I wanted to get to a certain level, I said, I want to be able to pick up my son from school every day. That was my goal. I said, I want to be so successful to where I'll be able to leave what I'm doing and pick him up from school. And I was able to do that. But the key is the time, because our fathers, that generation, if our fathers were there, because it was only a certain percentage of us that had them there, and we were lucky to have that, they didn't put in the time. They couldn't put in the time because they had to work 2 and 3 jobs to maintain the household, right? So they didn't do that. So now we're maintaining the household. We're providing that economic background, but we're also putting in the time, because growing up, we were taught boys need a role model. That was ingrained in us. You know, girls need a role model. You got to make sure she knows how to dress and how to carry herself and all of that. So we're putting in the time. And that's what I want to say about that. I think we take it for granted. I take it for granted. I'm not surprised that his daughter is successful. I mean, that's not, we don't have to, I listen to parents like brag about their kids. We don't really do that because it's like, aren't you supposed to do that? Like, that's just like, right, that's the expectation. So my son does stuff. I mean, he's in 5 different honor societies, all A's, star basketball player. I mean, he's doing literally every single thing, and I don't think we pull him aside and say, good job, you know, because the expectation is so high. You know, he wants to go to Harvard. Why you want to go to Harvard? Well, that's the #1 school. Well, I want to be a neurosurgeon. Why is that? Neurosurgeons make $1 million a year. The standard is so high. So I want to take that to this point. Our kids get it, but those kids that don't have us will never get it. Right. So my point, and what someone told me, I just told Dr. Diop this today, someone said that we as positive black men, all the black men I see in here today, we have to tell our story. The biggest trick that they pulled on us, that the system pulled on us, was to tell you, when you get successful, be humble. Don't show off your success. Don't do that. You know who does show off their success? The athletes and entertainers. They show it off, and who do our kids want to be? The athletes. And kids ain't like, oh, I want to be like Dr. Kelley when I grow up. I want to be, because we were told, don't show where you live. Don't drive that car to work. You don't dress flashy. Don't do that. Everything was told to dial it down so that those young men don't look at you and copy you. They copy somebody who is not as educated. So I'm going to say this. How do we tell our story? Because we don't learn these lessons till we're 50 years old, you know. We should have been telling our story. How do we tell our story to recreate ourselves in these young people?
The easiest way is to write a book. I've written 2. So this is taking a point off to do a promo, The Making of a Madman. You can go to my website. I got copies here, drmateendiop.com. You can buy my book. That's what my story is. You can buy your book as well, and inner city public schools still work. But I'm joking, but that's seriously the best way to get your story out there. The late, great Dr. Miles Monroe, one of my favorite preachers, he said, the richest place in the world is the cemetery. He said that's where unwritten books go to die. Unwritten stories, unwritten plays, unstarted businesses, that's where those types of things go to die. Because we live our entire lives and we keep that stuff in us. So you have a story that I can learn from Brother Caleb. I need to know his story. But if I don't talk to him every day, how am I going to know his story? You have to write it down. You have to put it in a book. You don't have to be a spectacular book or anything. Just write it. Write your story, and then, as black men, we need to have these kinds of things where we can sit and we can talk to one another and bounce ideas off of one another, because you don't have no idea that I might be going through exactly what you're going through. But as men, you know, we got to be tough, and we can't show our emotions and all other kind of stuff. So we kind of keep that stuff bottled in until we decide one day to give it all up and blow our heads off. We can't do it. Write your story. Put it in a book. I don't want it, next time somebody come to me and go, man, I've been meaning to write my book. I'm like, I'm going to hold you to it, because the next time I see you, you need to have up to 3 chapters done already. But that's literally the best way to do it. When somebody wants to ask me something, I say, I know you haven't read it because you'll ask me something that's in my book. Hey, man, what school did you go to? And I know you didn't read my book. So that's my answers right about.
And you just hit it on the head when you said we got to have these kind of discussions. The higher we go up as black men, there's a level of posturing that starts to come into the play where you're too busy. You don't have time, or you're unreachable at this point. I was talking to Busta Rhymes, so my background is in the entertainment industry, and that's how I relate to kids a lot from being an executive in hip-hop and things like that. And Busta Rhymes said this. He said, look, I got my phone on me at all times. The only time I don't answer my phone is if I'm performing. But when I get off stage, I'm going to call you back. So his biggest pet peeve is people in the music industry who wait 6 or 7 days to call him back just because you have to act like you're big and you're busy. Because in the industry, there's this thing, if you answer your phone, oh, you know, you must not be that big, you know. But he's like, when I look at my phone and it says Nas, I'm like, yo, Nas, what you need? I don't have to wait 6 days so I can say, oh, I'm just as busy as you. You know, I'm not just sitting by my phone. So we have that. And they even say this. They're like, you know, even Jay-Z returns text messages. They said he's not going to return your text like right away. But they said on a Sunday evening, he sits down and he'll look through his message. And it may be just one word he replies, but he's going to reply to you. So at the billionaire level, if he can do that, we can do it on a better level and network. We have to get rid of that posturing and that division of like, oh, you know, I got to act a certain way, I got to do that, because on the other side, they're not doing that. They're working together against us coming up with plans. So we've got to find a way, and I'm going to tie into this right here. The strongest thing we have right now as we look at Kamala Harris and we look at the power of the AKAs, how they came together behind her and the evolving of the Divine Nine. As a result of that, a female organization getting behind a candidate, and really not even getting, because the organizations can't support a candidate, but just by voter education and voter registration, just the power of the Divine Nine. How do we use our organizations to produce results for our schools?
And that's a great segue, because that's my whole point. I'm an Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated.
Kappa Alpha Psi.
Kappa Alpha Psi. I see we have alphas in the house. All these black male organizations, we really owe it to our communities that we're in. We're right here on the east side. The Kappas are right next door to us. If we see our young black boys failing out of school, flunking out of school, killing each other in the streets, it's really incumbent upon us as educated black men, because you can't even be in our organization without a college degree. You have to either have a college degree or be in school to even be in our organization. So when we are sitting on our high horses and we're talking about this and we're doing that, and we see our young brothers on the street, we have got to go out. That's why we have mentoring programs. That's why we have scholarship programs. But you know, it's a weird thing. When I was, we do scholarships every year. When I was a high school principal, I used to have to, I'm going to say beg and plead, but I did more than that. To get our black boys to fill out the applications, I forced them to do it. Like, you're not going to fourth period today. You're going into the Go Center. The Go Center is where you fill out your applications. That's going to be your class. I'm going to take you in there. You're going to sit down. I'm going to have the scholarship application up, the common application, the FAFSA, and that's all you're going to do for the next hour and a half. I had to do that intentionally. But they actually, when they sat down and did it, they got it done. And when they got it done, they saw that, wait a minute, I'm going to get a scholarship? Yeah, you're going to get a scholarship. But it takes something like somebody like us to sit there and force them with intentionality to do what they have to do. So I think the biggest thing with the Divine Nine is we have to be intentional. I'm going to use that word. We have to be intentional. We can't just sit here and just think because the Qs showed up or the Noops showed up that the kids going to see us and we got on our Nelly and we're going to sit out a hop. Now they just going to want to be us. No. We have to create intentional programs and intentionally go out and grab them and intentionally follow them and intentionally take them and walk them through the steps of life.
That's right, absolutely. Because here's the thing, I don't know if you know, today's generation of students, they don't even need that. They're going to college and they're like, I don't need to join any of these organizations. I don't need to. They're doing their own thing. They're doing their own thing with religion, y'all. The young men, I'm over a program, the Boulay Scholars Program is the most prestigious scholarship and mentoring program for black male students. And our young men, a typical young man in our program, he's in college with a 4.0. I'm going to just do going into college. They have a 4.0 GPA. They're the starting quarterback of the football team. They're the student council president. They're all world. And when we ask them what church you go to, they say, we don't do that. We don't. He's like, we study a lot of different things. So they're getting totally away from the conventions and traditions and all of those things like that. But if we bring those traditions back, if we show the importance of it, if we reach out to them, then they're able to keep those things going. Because these kids, if we don't keep a hand on them, they're going to go in a completely different direction that we may not even recognize when we're 70 and 80 years old, at that point. So, that's just something to think about, preserving that legacy of that.
So as we wrap this conversation up, again, you have any questions, feel free. Just raise your hand and start talking.
Yeah, we can open it up.
We'll open it up. But as we wrap this thing up, I wanted to bring up this last topic, and it's called mindfulness. That's a big thing now that they're actually getting ready to teach or teaching in some schools. The mindfulness, which, you can say it's religious or say it's spiritual, whatever you want to call it. But in the National Mentoring Foundation or in your travels or anywhere you've been, how do you perceive or have you seen the concept of mindfulness being taught, and what are your thoughts on teaching mindfulness, meditation, that type of thing in school?
Well, I'll tell you, my first encounter with that is through you. I believe you were one of the first to bring that to education. And here's the thing, these concepts like that's been going on in our upper middle class schools and in upper class areas. They've been having a yoga class and talking about meditation and all of those things like that. we're just now getting these concepts and bringing them to inner city schools because there's a problem. You know, when we're in trouble, we're backtracking. We're saying, what can we do? How can we expand? How can we do that? It's all about exposing kids to a higher level of thinking very early, because here's the thing. Our black boys, we think we got to focus on reading, writing, math, all of that. Up until the second grade, and I know you know this research, black males are the most intelligent students of all. But at the second grade, you start to identify little Tommy right there, and you start to say, this other kid is acting up. I want you to go straighten him out real quick. And you're giving him credit now because he's bigger and stronger and he can fight. Maybe he can fight better. You know, hey, you know, get these kids in line. Or he reruns. Oh, you're the fastest one out there. He looks at what you value and like, I'm going to focus more on sports, or I'm going to be the toughest one. So our kids are prepared for things like that. We just got to present it. We got to be open. You know, that's one of the things when you have principals who are dynamic, bringing in new programs and new forms of thought and all of those things. I've seen schools now in the inner city that have martial arts in the school. You know, things we never even thought of before. You know, in our day, they'd be like, oh, man, you can't teach them kids no karate. They'll be fighting everybody in there. When in reality, if you teach them that, they get self-discipline and they don't fight anybody. So, yeah, it's all about expansion, expanding the mind, expanding that creativity. I think the good thing is we are going in that direction. You're going to start to see more things like that. So the mindfulness, things like that, I think we're looking at 5 to 10 years from now, that will be a norm.
And I hope it's a norm a whole lot sooner, because going back to the students that I've had, especially the ones in high school, once I got them to start thinking, just thinking differently. When I go back to when I said I brought them into the Go Center, the Go Center was a place where kids would go in and fill out their college scholarships and all that kind of stuff. Basically, it was just a computer lab. So when I said, you're not going to fourth period today, you're going to go into the Go Center, and I make you go in here. You don't have no choice. Go in here. I have counselors in here. You're going to sit at this computer, and you're going to apply for these scholarships. And you're going to do your common application. You're going to do everything you need to do for college right now.
So that's what I was going to say. You just brought me back to a thought I was going to say when you was mentioning that before. A tip for you all out here today. College application and college scholarship, the reason why our kids don't do as well, you're competing against parents filling out the application. We as black people think, boy, sit down and fill out your college applications, get all these scholarships done. That's not who you're competing against. On the other side, the parents do all of that. So you're competing against a man with a PhD or a law degree who's filling out all of the applications for their kid. So understand the type of resources that go behind people with money. People with money are successful because they have generations of support that we didn't have. So if you're able to do that, the more you're able to, like I'm gonna give you an example of planning ahead, how it works. My son is going into his junior year. As he goes into the senior year, I already know my entire summer, him going into that year will be dedicated to helping him do applications. Like, my calendar is already blocked out. I know my full-time job is going to be having to do the scholarships and applications and all that, because he wants to go to Harvard. He wants to go to Yale. And he's not competing against other kids. It's me competing against other physicians and attorneys and all of those people. It's a competitive world, and don't think your kids aren't able to do it. They can do it. You just got to level the playing field. So that's what I was trying to remember when you said
that's important, because what you just said is parental involvement. So when I had the students in the Go Center and the counselors and everybody, the Kappas, all the community people that I needed coming there, stand over them and look over their shoulder. Because I know the boys, you can't ask a 17-year-old to get here and write an essay. They don't even have enough words in their vocabulary to write a well-thought-out essay. So you have to help them think. You have to stand over their shoulder and go, well, what do you think about this? And let them start writing it out. And we want to stop them and say, you didn't spell this right. No, just let them write. Just let them write. I don't care if they have it misspelled for now. This is just a draft. Let them write. Just let them sit there and write. And our kids did tonight. When I say we went up 1,189% from one year to the next for kids putting scholarship. I said 1,189%, y'all. 1,189%, y'all. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. These are kids that are in college now. These are students like our young man Nasir right here. When you sit there and you actually get intentional with them, I'm telling you, when you are actually being intentional with our young men, I'm talking about black boys. When you sit there and show them that you care, they'll move mountains for you. But if they don't think you care, then you kind of going to lose them there. One last thing, and we're going to shut this thing down.
One thing we forgot, we got to cover HBCUs.
I'm going to do that one last.
We'll touch that one last. Okay.
Another thing I wanted to bring up, and as I talk to students that are, let's say they're in middle school, they're in the 8th grade, but they're already 15. They're in the 7th grade and they're already 14. Do you know how they got that way? One thing we do in public schools that not only does it not work, it actually hurts to our black boys. You know that? You know what that is? What happens in the 1st grade? What do? If they're not succeeding? We hold them back. We retain them. They fail the 1st grade. That is, when you do that, you basically put the grade, you started digging that grave for them.
Prison pipeline.
At 6 years old because you decided to hold them back. No, they need to go ahead and be held back. And it's normally only black boys, not Hispanics, not white, not Asian, black boys. We hold them back in the 1st grade. So now their peers are now 7 years old in the 2nd grade. They're still 6 in the 1st. And it goes on and on and on. And then when they get to the older grades, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, when the STAR test counts, they get held back again. So now they're in the 5th grade, and they're already 13. They already have hair on their face at 15. 16, and keep doing the math, 16, 17, 18. They end up walking into high school already 17 years old, walking in the door. So they've already checked out. So we missed them in 4th grade. We failed them in the 1st grade, and now they're getting ready to drop out, and they're going to end up in prison. That's what that pipeline is all about. So that's one thing I decided I'm never going to do. I don't care what you're going to do. I'm never going to hold you back. I don't care if you can't read. I'm not going to hold you back, because if I hold you back, it's going to lead to other things. I'd rather have I call it an extended 1st grade in the summer, where we work on some things. But when school started the next year, you go in the 2nd grade. Go ahead. HBCUs. I'll let you finish.
Wrap it up. Well, let's see. We will, I don't know if we should do it in a question format or well, I'm going to just say this. Well, let's just make a statement about it. HBCUs are hot right now. So we got to do one thing. We got to ride this wave, because it ain't no guarantee that this is going to continue. It's most likely not going to continue getting into this election thing. So we're not even going to touch that. That's a whole nother hour right there. But we have to ride the wave, because right now HBCUs are hot. HBCUs are the center of everything. Our kids know what they are. Our kids are interested. We had to do that. I didn't attend an HBCU. So I said, I'm going to make sure I'm connected in some format. So I teach at an HBCU. So all of us should have some connection to it in some way or another, whether you donate, whether you send $50 to Morehouse. That's contributing to it. But connect yourself some kind of way with our HBCUs, because that's, besides the black church, that's one of the last things that we have that's ours. And the reason why they're still here is because they work. They're successful. Y'all, that was supposed to stop. Our HBCUs were only there because you couldn't go to the white school, so let's create a black school. Okay, now we got integration. Those were supposed to shut down. You know why they're still there? They were good, and it worked. And it's an impressive thing to have a black professor with a Harvard degree who works at Howard instead of working at Yale or Princeton. So they work. They're finally getting acknowledged. Let's definitely get in there. Our PWIs, if you don't know what that is, predominantly white institutions, are not better than our HBCUs. Right. They're equal and they're different. That's the way I describe them. So definitely ride the wave, because it's not a guarantee to continue.
When I came out of high school, my very first college I attended was Houston-Tillerson. That's the very first college I ever flunked out of. And when I say I flunked out, I'm not serious. I was a long time ago now. I was a different person. I got all Fs. Straight F, all the way down. It wasn't because I couldn't read and write. I just didn't know what I was doing. I figured I'm on a basketball scholarship.
You thought
that's what I'm here.
You meant you finished the course.
I finished the course. So what do you mean I flunked out? I tell you this, I'm going to let it go. When you read my book, I tell this story too. I'm going to tell you this real quick story. Went there my freshman year my freshman year of college, went to school, played basketball, didn't know I was getting all F's because I went to every class. I just didn't do any work. At the end of the first semester, we came home from Christmas break. I go back. This is just when Thriller came out. Thriller, Michael Jackson. It just came out. We go back to school early. We getting ready to have a road trip going to PV. I get ready to get on the bus. The coach says, he stops me. He said, where you going? I said, I'm going to road trip. We got a basketball game. He said, you can't go. You flunked out. I said, what do you mean I flunked out? He said, you flunked out. I said, what does that mean? I had no idea. I'm telling you the truth. I said, what do you mean I flunked out? What's that guy? He said, you failed all your classes. I said, what does it have to do with me playing basketball? Bro, I'm not lying. He laughed at me. He said, well, you can't go and you can't stay here. That began my downfall after that. But I'm just saying, but HBCUs, that had nothing to do with your HBCU. That was how dumb I was. But I'm telling you, like you said, Howard University, my niece has started Howard University. Right now, we just dropped her off today. So we will definitely tell everybody out here that if you can send your child to any HBCU, Houston Tillerson, Paul Quinn, Wiley College, if you're not sending your child there, you ought to be giving them some money. Final thoughts, and we're going to wrap this thing up.
Final thoughts, y'all. We all have to come together to help our black males in education. We haven't touched on the black females because that's a discussion in itself. You know, as Dr. Diop said, it's separate. You have to break this down by gender. You can't cover black kids as a whole. You got to say black males. You got to say black females. You know, I guess that'll be our next discussion. This might turn into an internet show or something like that.
Podcast,
I don't know.
man.
We got some podcast, something like that. But we have to, since we just focus on the black males, I'm going to end my final topics on them as a whole. I want to say this also. Y'all don't know Dr. Diop was a good basketball player. Dr. Diop was NBA level. I'd like to ask him that if we have more time. Like, why didn't he go to the league, right? Like, he got all the records and everything.
Couldn't stay in school.
Right? So regarding our black male students, I'm going to just leave you with this. It's all about, there's a reason that I spent 25 years in education and finished my final job as CEO of the National Mentoring Foundation, because it took me 25 years to realize that is the key. You can mentor your own child, somebody else's child, somebody at your church, through an organization. If we all mentor at least one at-risk black male, you'll create a whole generation of achievers. So that's my challenge to you. And mentoring can be a phone call once a month. It could be meeting in person once a week. It could be anything. It could be telling your nephew, hey, pull your pants up. Man, they don't do that sagging no more. That's out. Mentoring, that's what it is. So if we could all make a challenge to mentor one black male, and look, I got to add a time to it. Once a month, man. Once a week sounds like a job, right? Let's make it fun. At least once a month, mentor a black male, and we definitely will see the results in the next 10 to 20 years. That's all I got.
Y'all show some love for Dr. Kelley, Dr. Diop. We done. Thank y'all very much.